That Thanksgiving evening, she stood up with her crystal glass, called me the gold-digging leech, then projected a humiliating contract on the dining room screen for the entire family to see. As laughter echoed across the table, the dining room doors opened. My attorney, bank director, and a notary public walked in. "Are you certain you want to continue?" I asked, and placed a folder on the table showing $52 million in verified assets. The grandfather clock struck 12 midnight, its chimes cutting through the sudden silence like a judge's gavel. My name is Ava Bennett, and until that Thanksgiving evening at the Caldwell estate in Maple Harbor, I'd managed to keep my financial truth hidden for 6 years of marriage. The colonial mansion overlooked the harbor, its windows glowing amber against the November darkness. 23 relatives had gathered in the formal dining room, where Margaret Caldwell, my mother-in-law, held court at the head of the mahogany table. I'd arrived early to help with preparations, wearing my usual understated sweater and slacks, nothing that would hint at the Asteria Holdings LLC documents locked in my home safe. My husband Ethan was already there, relegated to hanging string lights while his mother directed operations like a general commanding troops. "Ava, dear," Margaret had greeted me with her practiced smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "So glad you could make it. I've set your place at the far end. You'll be more comfortable there." Translation: as far from the family's inner circle as possible. The tension had been building for weeks. Margaret's email to the family group chat had assigned me sole responsibility for preparing the entire Thanksgiving meal, yet she'd deliberately shorted the grocery delivery no butter, half the cranberries, wrong type of flour. When the gravy turned lumpy and the pie crust cracked, she'd photographed every imperfection, posting them to her social media with captions about trying our best with what we have. By 7:30 p.m., everyone had assembled. Aunt Ruth wore her pearls, Uncle Harold his Princeton tie, Cousin Paige live-streaming her outfit choices. The dining room smelled of roasted turkey and Margaret's expensive perfume. Ethan sat 3 seats away from me, trapped between his mother and his aunt, shooting me apologetic glances he thought his mother wouldn't notice. Then came the donation box incident. Margaret had placed a gilded box in the foyer with a sign, "Ava's contribution $25,000 for family renovation." She announced it during cocktails, ensuring everyone saw the empty box, the expectant stares, the implication that I, the poor girl from Riverside, couldn't possibly contribute to the Caldwell legacy. "Before we say grace," Margaret announced, standing with her Waterford crystal glass, "I have a special Thanksgiving surprise, a fun family activity." The lights dimmed. A projection screen descended from the ceiling. She'd actually installed a projection system for this moment. The document that appeared was titled Caldwell Family Protection Agreement Supplementary Terms. My photo was clipped to the corner like a mugshot. "Now, Ava," Margaret's voice dripped honey over poison. "We all know you came to Ethan with limited resources. This little amendment just ensures the Caldwell Trust remains protected. It's really just a formality, something fun to make official during our family gathering." She'd drafted terms that would exclude me from any inheritance, prevent me from any claim on Ethan's assets. And this was the vicious part: required me to pay $50,000 annually into a family maintenance fund controlled by Margaret. The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. Cousin Paige zoomed her phone camera on my face. Uncle Harold muttered about protecting family interests. Aunt Ruth nodded approvingly. Ethan's face had gone pale, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. "Sign it now, dear," Margaret commanded, producing a Mont Blanc pen with theatrical flourish. "Unless you have something to hide, unless you really are what everyone whispers, a calculating gold digger who targeted my son." The grandfather clock in the corner showed 11:45 p.m. 15 minutes until midnight. I stood slowly, my hands steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "You want me to sign this tonight in front of everyone?" I asked, my voice carrying across the silent room. "If you truly love my son, if you're really part of this family, you'll sign without hesitation," Margaret declared. "Otherwise, you can leave this house tonight. Permanently." That's when I sent the text I'd prepared, "Please come in now." The dining room doors opened with deliberate precision. Growing up in Riverside, Ohio, I learned early that dignity matters more than display. My parents worked double shifts at the automotive plant, saving every penny for my education. While Margaret Caldwell was hosting charity galas, I was debugging code at 3 a.m., surviving on ramen and determination. After MIT, I'd landed at Bayline Therapeutics as a product manager, working on revolutionary cardiac monitoring devices. The hours were brutal. 18-hour days were standard, weekends non-existent. But I believed in what we were building technology that could predict heart attacks 72 hours before they happened. 3 years in, I saw the company's fatal flaw. Management was burning through venture capital on marketing while the core technology remained underdeveloped. I left with 2 colleagues to start our own venture, focusing solely on perfecting the algorithm. We worked out of a converted garage in Palo Alto, living on credit cards and conviction. The breakthrough came at 2:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. Our prototype successfully predicted cardiac events in 94% of test cases. Within 6 months, North Shore Capital offered $42 million in cash plus $10 million in preferred stock for complete acquisition. After taxes and splitting with my co-founders, I walked away with $28 million liquid, which I immediately diversified into municipal bonds, blue-chip stocks, and real estate through Asteria Holdings LLC. I'd met Ethan 2 months after the sale, at a medical conference in Boston. He didn't know about the acquisition. North Shore had kept our names out of the press release at my request. To him, I was just another professional in the medical device industry, someone who understood his work as a manufacturing engineer. We talked about process optimization and quality control over coffee that stretched into dinner, then dinner that stretched into midnight walks along the Charles River. When he proposed a year later, I almost told him everything. But by then, I'd met Margaret. She'd run a background check before our second date. Ethan accidentally mentioned it, thinking it was funny. She'd found my parents' bankruptcy filing from 2008, my student loans paid off. But she didn't note that, my old apartment in a working-class neighborhood. She'd already decided who I was. She comes from nothing. I'd overheard her tell Aunt Ruth at our engagement party, but at least she seems grateful for the opportunity. The decision to stay silent crystallized that night. If I revealed my wealth, I'd become either a liar or a target. Margaret would pivot from calling me a gold digger to claiming I'd deceived her precious son. There would be questions about prenups, about control, about who really held power in the marriage. So I kept working, taking a modest position at a local medical device company, driving my 5-year-old Honda, shopping at Target. I moved into Ethan's condo instead of revealing I owned the entire building through Asteria Holdings. When Margaret made snide comments about my clothing, I bit my tongue. When she forgot to invite me to family investment meetings, I stayed quiet. The only people who knew the truth were my attorney, Nora Whitfield, and my private banker at Harbor First. Nora had structured Asteria Holdings to be completely confidential. The LLC owned everything, and I owned the LLC through a trust. Property records showed corporate ownership. Bank accounts were under the company name. Even the IRS filings were protected by privacy laws. Ethan never questioned our comfortable but modest lifestyle. His salary covered our visible expenses, while I quietly paid off the mortgage through Asteria, funded our retirement accounts to the maximum, and donated anonymously to causes we both cared about. I thought I could maintain this balance forever, but Margaret's escalations over the past year had made it clear she wouldn't stop until she'd driven me out or broken me down. The forgotten invitations became open exclusions. The snide comments became public humiliations. She'd convinced Ethan to deposit his bonuses into a family investment fund she controlled, leaving us dependent on her approval for any major purchase. Last month, she'd crossed a line. She'd called my former colleagues at Bayline, spinning stories about my mental instability and gold-digging tendencies, warning them not to recommend me for positions. One friend forwarded me her email, subject line, "Concerning Ava Bennett, a warning." That's when I started planning. If Margaret wanted a public confrontation, I'd give her one she'd never forget. But it would be on my terms, with witnesses, with documentation, with the kind of proof that couldn't be disputed or dismissed. The Thanksgiving ambush was perfect. She'd gathered the entire family, created a stage for my humiliation, even arranged for Cousin Paige to live stream the event. She'd prepared everything except for the possibility that the mouse she'd cornered might actually be a lioness who'd chosen to purr. The 3 weeks before Thanksgiving had been Margaret's masterclass in psychological warfare. It started with the family email chain on November 3rd, sent at 6:42 a.m. while I was commuting to work. Dear family, I've assigned our darling Ava the honor of preparing this year's entire Thanksgiving feast. She's always talking about her humble background. What better way to showcase those salt-of-the-earth cooking skills list attached? Kisses. Margaret. So, the list included 23 dishes, each with specific requirements. Turkey brined for exactly 48 hours. Cranberry sauce made from fresh berries. Not canned. 6 types of pie, all from scratch. Enough to feed 30 people, though only 23 were invited. When the grocery delivery arrived November 20th, it was deliberately sabotaged. Half the butter, wrong type of cream, no vanilla extract, cranberries that were already soft. The delivery slip showed Margaret's signature she'd personally inspected and approved the order. When I called to request the missing items, the store informed me Margaret had placed a final order, no modifications restriction on the account. Then came the church incident. Margaret attended First Presbyterian of Maple Harbor, where Ethan and I had been married. Pastor Williams called me November 21st, deeply uncomfortable. Ava, I need to ask. Margaret mentioned you're having financial difficulties. She's requested we add you to our hardship prayer list. She even suggested starting a collection. We're fine, Pastor. More than fine. I thought so, but she was quite insistent. She mentioned debt collectors, possible bankruptcy. The smear campaign expanded. Margaret called my gym, canceled my membership due to non-payment, though it was on auto-pay. She told the country club reception desk I was no longer authorized as Ethan's spouse. She even contacted the parent-teacher association at the school where I volunteered, expressing concerns about financial impropriety. But the family fund manipulation was the cruelest cut. November 22nd. She cornered Ethan at his office. Darling, with year-end bonuses coming, we should discuss the family investment fund. Your father would have wanted... She always invoked his dead father when she wanted something. You to think about generational wealth. I've set up a meeting with our financial advisor. The advisor was Margaret's cousin, who ran a boutique firm charging 3% management fees. The fund documents gave Margaret sole discretion over distributions. Ethan, exhausted from a product launch, signed without reading. Your mother's really looking out for us, he'd told me that night, missing my expression in the dark bedroom. She says this fund will guarantee our kids' education. We didn't have kids yet. Margaret knew I wanted them desperately, knew we'd been trying for 2 years. She brought it up constantly. No news yet. Well, financial stress can affect fertility, perhaps when you're more stable. The donation box appeared, Thanksgiving morning. Not just any box, an antique Victorian letterbox with gold leaf detail, probably worth $2,000 itself. The placard, professionally printed on ivory cardstock, read, Ava's contribution, $25,000 for Caldwell Family Historical Preservation Initiative. She'd placed it where every guest would see it upon entry. Worse, she'd told everyone about it in advance. Ava's making such a generous donation this year. She'd bragged to Aunt Ruth on a call I accidentally overheard. $25,000, though between you and me, I doubt she can actually manage it. We'll see what excuses she creates. The prenup ambush was planned with military precision. She'd hired a professional events company to install the projection system, claiming it was for sharing family photos. The document itself had been drafted by Reginald Thornton, Esquire, a family friend who'd been disbarred in 2 states but still practiced in Massachusetts through a loophole. The terms were designed to humiliate I would forfeit any claim to marital assets, pay $50,000 annually to the family fund, submit to quarterly financial audits by Margaret's chosen accountant, and this was pure vindictiveness. Agree to a moral character clause giving Margaret authority to void my marriage if she deemed my behavior unsuitable for the Caldwell name. She'd even prepared a media strategy. Cousin Paige, who had 12,000 Instagram followers, had been coached to livestream the fun family moment. Uncle Harold, who golfed with 3 judges, had been primed to witness the voluntary signing. Aunt Ruth had her phone ready to capture my grateful tears. The email chain from that morning, which I'd screenshot, showed Margaret's final coordination. Remember, everyone act surprised. This is just a fun family tradition, nothing serious. But if she refuses to sign, we'll all know what that means about her true intentions. The family must protect itself from fortune hunters. What Margaret didn't know was that every email, every call, every manipulation had been documented. My phone had recorded the conversation with Pastor Williams. The gym had provided written confirmation of her fraudulent cancellation. The grocery store had surveillance footage of her removing items from my order. But more importantly, what Margaret didn't know was that I'd already won. The papers in my locked car weren't just financial statements. They were the foundation for something much bigger, a complete reversal of power that would happen in front of the very audience she'd assembled. The war room was my home office, transformed into a command center for the 3 days before Thanksgiving. Papers covered every Surface Bank statements, legal documents, printed emails, surveillance authorization forms. At the center sat Nora Whitfield, my attorney, her silver hair pulled back as she reviewed contracts with surgical precision. Ava, this prenup Margaret drafted is legally questionable at best, Nora said, adjusting her reading glasses. Coercion, duress, unconscionable terms any first-year law student could get this thrown out. But I understand that's not the point. The point is to humiliate me publicly. She wants to break me in front of everyone. Then we give her exactly what she doesn't expect: complete transparency. Nora slid a folder across the desk. Harbor First Bank sent over everything you requested. Daniel Ortiz, the branch director, had personally overseen the preparation. The balance verification letter bore the official seal, dated November 26th, confirmed by 3 bank officers. Total assets under Asteria Holdings, LLC, $52,437,218.16. The portfolio breakdown was comprehensive. Municipal bonds, $12 million across 6 states, all AAA rated. Blue chip stocks, $15 million in dividend aristocrats companies that had increased payouts for 25 consecutive years. Real estate, $18 million, including the building where Ethan and I lived, 2 rental properties in Boston, and a small commercial complex. The rest sat in treasury bills and money market accounts, generating steady interest. Every transaction is traceable to the North Shore acquisition, Nora continued. Clean money, proper taxes paid, all documented. I've also prepared certificates of ownership for each property, authenticated and notarized. The second folder was thicker evidence of Margaret's manipulations. Email printouts highlighted and tabbed, phone recordings transcribed and verified, security footage from 3 establishments showing Margaret's interference. The grocery store manager had provided a sworn affidavit about the altered order. Pastor Williams had written a letter expressing his concern about potential defamation. This could be grounds for a restraining order, Nora observed. Harassment, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I don't want to destroy her. I want to reveal her. We spent 6 hours structuring the response. The Caldwell Scholars Fund was Nora's masterpiece, a $2 million education trust for all Caldwell grandchildren and their descendants. With one crucial provision: any guardian who engaged in coercion, manipulation, or public humiliation of family members would forfeit their children's access to the funds. It's generous but protected, Nora explained. You're offering something wonderful while establishing boundaries. Margaret can't attack it without looking petty. The notary public, Jennifer Martinez, arrived at 4 p.m. to authenticate everything. She was a court-certified witness, her testimony unimpeachable. I'll need to verify your identity and confirm you're signing freely, she said, checking my driver's license against corporate documents. This is quite a substantial portfolio. Ms. Bennett, Daniel Ortiz called at 5:30 p.m. Ms. Bennett, I've cleared my schedule for tomorrow evening as requested. The bank's legal team has reviewed everything. We're prepared to verify all accounts and transactions in person if needed. You understand, this is Thanksgiving. For a client of your standing, the bank president himself offered to attend. Besides, his voice carried a hint of amusement. After what you've shared about the situation, I wouldn't miss this for anything. The final piece came together at 9 p.m. Ethan texted, asking about my preparation for tomorrow's dinner. I crafted my response carefully. Everything's ready. But Ethan, I need you to know your mother plans something tomorrow that will change our marriage. I've kept things from you to protect our peace, but that ends tomorrow night. You'll learn everything. I'm not asking you to choose sides. I'm asking you to listen with an open mind. I love you. That's never been false, despite what you might hear. His response came after 10 minutes. Ava, you're scaring me. What's going on? Your mother has her plans. I have mine. Tomorrow. You'll understand why I couldn't tell you sooner. Just remember, every document will be authenticated, every number verified, every claim supported by evidence. I'm done being silent. I arranged the documents in 3 leather portfolios. Portfolio 1, financial verification bank statements, ownership certificates, the North Shore acquisition papers. Portfolio 2, the Caldwell Scholars Fund documents, ready for signing, with distribution terms clearly outlined. Portfolio 3, evidence of harassment, manipulation, and defamation, organized chronologically with supporting documentation. Nora made one last review at 11:45 p.m. You could simply reveal the finances and leave it there. The harassment evidence might be seen as vindictive. She called my parents' neighbors. She told them I was a gold digger who abandoned my family. My mother cried for hours. This isn't vindictive, it's accountability. The text chain with my team was brief but coordinated. Daniel would enter at exactly 11:58 p.m. Nora and Jennifer would follow 30 seconds later. I would signal them with a simple message, now. One more thing, Nora said, packing her briefcase. Your husband, have you considered he might side with his mother? Then I'll know where I stand. But Ethan's not cruel, just conflict avoidant. When he sees what she's done, how she's manipulated both of us, I believe he'll choose truth over comfort. And if you're wrong, I looked at the papers that would tomorrow reveal 6 years of hidden wealth. Then $52 million buys excellent divorce lawyers. The Caldwell dining room gleamed like a stage set for tragedy. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, each place setting measured to Margaret's exact specifications. The smell of roasted turkey mingled with her signature scent. Chanel No. 5 applied liberally enough to announce her presence before she entered any room. I'd arrived at 6 p.m., arms full of my imperfect dishes. The turkey was perfectly cooked, but Margaret had already carved it herself, arranging it to look dry. My pies sat at the back of the dessert table, while her store-bought ones occupied center stage with cards reading Margaret's famous recipe. Oh, Ava, she'd said loudly as relatives arrived. Don't worry about the lumpy gravy. We can't all be natural cooks. I've prepared backup. The seating arrangement told its own story. Margaret at the head, naturally. Ethan to her right, where she could touch his arm and whisper in his ear. I was placed at the far end, between Cousin Paige already recording and Uncle Harold's empty chair, as he preferred standing while drinking. By 7:45 p.m., everyone had gathered. Aunt Ruth clinked her pearls nervously, sensing Margaret's electric anticipation. Ethan's cousins from Connecticut, the twins Bradley and Marcus, compared watches while their wives discussed private schools. Margaret's sister Dorothy had flown in from Seattle specifically for this. Margaret had promised quite a show. The donation box made its first appearance during cocktails. Everyone. Margaret tapped her glass with a silver spoon. Before dinner, I want to acknowledge Ava's generous pledge, $25,000 for our family historical preservation. The box is in the foyer. We're all so excited to see her contribution. She led a procession to the entrance hall, where the empty box sat spotlit like a museum piece. 22 faces turned to me expectantly. Paige's phone captured my frozen smile. Perhaps after dinner, I suggested calmly. Oh, but we're all so curious. Margaret's voice dripped false sweetness. Unless there's a problem, surely you haven't pledged money you don't have. No problem at all. Margaret, just timing. We returned to the dining room at 8:15 p.m. The turkey presentation began, Margaret carving with theatrical precision while describing each family recipe's heritage, none of which I'd been taught. Naturally. The Caldwell stuffing dates back to 1892, she announced. Only family members receive the recipe. Real family. Ethan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. He'd been drinking since 7, unusual for him, and his eyes wouldn't meet mine. By 9:30 p.m., dinner plates were cleared. The anticipation in the room was palpable. Margaret kept checking her phone, confirming something with someone. At 9:45 p.m., she stood, raising her glass. Family before dessert. I have a wonderful Thanksgiving tradition to share. Something fun, something important, something that protects what we've all built together. The lights dimmed on cue. Someone had definitely been hired to run this production. The projection screen descended smoothly from its hidden ceiling mount. And there it was. Caldwell Family Protection Agreement supplementary terms in 48-point font. Now, this is just a formality, Margaret continued, her voice carrying perfectly in the hushed room. Our dear Ava came to us from modest circumstances. We've welcomed her with open arms, but it's only prudent to ensure that the Caldwell legacy remains protected. The document scrolled slowly on screen. Gasps emerged as people read. Complete forfeiture of marital assets. Annual payments of $50,000 to the family fund. Quarterly financial audits. The moral character clause giving Margaret veto power over my marriage. This is insane, someone whispered Bradley's wife. I think. It's protection, Margaret corrected sharply. Unless someone has ulterior motives, signing should be simple. Ava. The pen. She produced the Mont Blanc with a flourish, walking the length of the table to place it before me. The document's signature page was already printed, waiting on the placemat. I need to read this properly, I said. Oh, we'll wait. Margaret returned to her throne. Everyone, feel free to discuss. Paige, are you getting this family history in the making? Paige's phone swung toward me, broadcasting to her 12,000 followers. The room erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. Aunt Ruth stage-whispered about protecting assets. Uncle Harold, now 3 bourbons in, loudly proclaimed that prenups should be standard. Ethan finally spoke, his voice unsteady. Mom, this seems excessive. Darling, you're too trusting. That's why you need me to protect you. Ava understands. Don't you? Ava. Unless there's some reason you can't sign some secret you're hiding. At 11:40 p.m., she escalated. Perhaps we should discuss what happens if you don't sign. This house, for instance, Ethan's name is on the deed, but I hold the mortgage. Your invitation to family events, well, that's at my discretion. Your place in the Caldwell family photos, the Caldwell Christmas card, the Caldwell trust provisions. You're threatening me. I'm clarifying expectations. Sign the document, or leave this house tonight. Permanently. Ethan will have to choose his mother who raised him, or a wife who refuses to prove her commitment. The grandfather clock showed 11:50 p.m. 10 minutes until midnight. I stood slowly, my phone in my hand. You want this signed in front of everyone. You want witnesses to this moment. Absolutely. Transparency. Dear, something you seem to struggle with. I typed 3 letters, now. The dining room doors opened at exactly 11:58 p.m. Daniel Ortiz entered first, his Harbor First Bank identification badge visible, followed by Nora Whitfield in her immaculate gray suit, and Jennifer Martinez carrying her official notary seal. The three of them moved with practiced precision, as if they'd rehearsed this moment. "What is this?" Margaret's voice cracked slightly. "Who are these people?" I remained standing, my hand steady as I reached for the leather portfolio Nora placed before me. "You wanted transparency, Margaret. You wanted everything public, with witnesses. I'm simply obliging. Ms. Bennett." Daniel Ortiz spoke clearly, his voice carrying authority. "I'm here to verify the financial documents you requested. May I proceed?" "Please do." He opened Portfolio 1 with ceremonial gravity. "This is a balance verification letter from Harbor First Bank, dated November 26th, authenticated by 3 bank officers including myself. It confirms total assets under Asteria Holdings LLC, sole proprietor Ava Bennett, in the amount of $52,437,218.16. The sound that followed wasn't quite silence, it was the absence of breath. 23 people simultaneously forgetting to exhale. Cousin Paige's phone shook, the live stream catching her stunned expression instead of mine. That's impossible," Margaret stammered. "She drives a Honda. She shops at Target." "Shall I continue?" Daniel pulled out the next document. Detailed portfolio breakdown municipal bonds totaling $12 million across 6 states. All AAA rated. Blue chip stock holdings of $15 million in dividend aristocrats. Real estate holdings valued at $18 million, including, he paused for effect, the building at 427 Riverside Avenue, where I believe you currently reside. Mr. Caldwell. Ethan's face had gone white. "We rent that apartment." "From Asteria Holdings LLC?" I confirmed quietly. "I've owned the building since before we met. You've been paying rent to my company, though I've never kept a penny of it. It all went to building maintenance and improvements." "This is fraud!" Margaret shrieked, standing so fast her chair toppled backward. "This is deception. She lied to all of us." Nora Whitfield stepped forward. "Ms. Bennett has never made any false statements about her finances. She simply chose not to disclose them, which is her legal right. However, Mrs. Caldwell, your documented pattern of harassment, defamation, and attempted financial coercion is another matter entirely. You can't prove anything." "Portfolio 3, I said simply. Nora opened the third leather folder. Sworn affidavit from Maple Harbor Grocery regarding altered delivery orders. Written statement from Pastor Williams regarding false claims of financial hardship. Security footage from Harbor Athletic Club showing you canceling Ms. Bennett's membership under false pretenses. Email chains documenting systematic harassment, including this one." She held up a printed page. "Sent to Ms. Bennett's former colleagues claiming mental instability and gold-digging tendencies." The room erupted. Aunt Ruth gasped. Bradley muttered something about lawsuit liability. Uncle Harold set down his bourbon with a sharp crack. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out the Caldwell Scholars Fund documentation. "I came here tonight prepared to donate $2 million to establish an education fund for every Caldwell grandchild and descendant," I announced, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Full college tuition, graduate school, even trade school, whatever path they choose. The documents are prepared, ready for signing." Young voices perked up around the table. Bradley's teenage daughter whispered urgently to her parents. Even Paige lowered her phone, calculating what this might mean for her future children. "But," I continued, "the fund has one non-negotiable provision. Any guardian who engages in coercion, manipulation, or public humiliation of family members forfeits their children's access. Permanently." Margaret's face cycled through colors I'd never seen in nature. "You can't buy this family. I'm not buying anything. I'm offering a gift with boundaries. The same boundaries any healthy family should have." I turned to address the room. Every person here just witnessed Margaret attempt to coerce me into signing a document that would strip me of marital rights, demand annual payments, and give her control over my marriage. You watched her threaten exile if I didn't comply. Is that the Caldwell family values you want to preserve? Jennifer Martinez, the notary, spoke up. I'm prepared to notarize any documents Ms. Bennett chooses to sign or not sign of her own free will. I'm also required to report any witnessed attempts at document execution under duress. The grandfather clock began its midnight chime. 12 resonant notes marking the end of Thanksgiving, the end of pretense, the end of Margaret's unchallenged reign. 52 million, someone whispered Dorothy. Margaret's own sister. My God, Margaret, what have you done? Ethan stood slowly, his hands gripping the table. His eyes moved from the financial documents to his mother's stricken face, to me. 6 years. You've had 52 million for 6 years and never said anything. Would it have mattered? I asked. Would your mother have treated me differently, or would she have just found different reasons to hate me? The projection screen still displayed Margaret's humiliating contract, now looking absurd in the context of the room. Paige had stopped recording, her face pale as she realized she'd been live-streaming an attempted extortion. The choice is simple, I announced. We can end this now. Margaret withdraws her demands, stops the harassment, and we move forward as a family that respects boundaries. The education fund gets signed tonight, benefiting everyone's children. Or, I looked directly at Margaret. We can explore the legal implications of defamation, harassment, and attempted extortion, with 23 witnesses and a live-streamed recording. Margaret lunged for the documents, her manicured nails reaching like talons. Nora Whitfield smoothly intercepted, placing Portfolio 2 on the table, the legal evidence that would destroy Margaret's reputation if released. Let me be clearer, I said, opening the second portfolio. This is the deed to 427 Riverside Avenue, purchased by Asteria Holdings LLC 3 years before I met Ethan. Cash purchase, $2.3 million. Here's the wire transfer confirmation. The closing documents, the property tax records all predating our first date by 36 months. I pulled out the next document. Certificate of Ownership for Asteria Holdings LLC, established 5 years ago, immediately after the North Shore Capital acquisition. Sole member Ava Bennett. No other investors, no other owners, no connection to the Caldwell family whatsoever. But you lived like a pauper. Margaret's voice had risen to near hysteria. That pathetic Honda, those cheap clothes. I lived within the means of my visible salary, by choice, for privacy, for peace. I turned to Ethan. Every month you paid rent. I moved it into a maintenance fund for the building. New HVAC last year. Remember the renovated gym? That was your rent money. Reinvested. Ethan sank back into his chair, pressing his palms against his eyes. The family fund. Mom, you made me put my bonuses into the family fund while your wife was deceiving you. Margaret spat. No! His voice carried a new edge. While my wife was protecting herself from you. He grabbed the harassment portfolio, flipping through emails, called her parents' neighbors, told Pastor Williams she was bankrupt, contacted her colleagues with lies. His voice rose with each revelation. Mother, these could be criminal charges. I was protecting you. From what? From a woman worth $52 million who chose to live modestly, who never asked me for anything, who paid for our home while pretending to be a tenant. Ethan stood, his chair scraping against hardwood. I need to see everything, all of it. I handed him the scholarship fund documents. $2 million, structured as an education trust. Every Caldwell child and descendant gets full tuition, living expenses, books everything through doctorate level if they choose. The only restriction is the behavior clause for guardians. Bradley's wife, Sandra, spoke up. That's incredibly generous. Our twins' college funds have been keeping us up at night. It would cover them completely, I confirmed. Harvard, Yale, MIT, wherever they get in. plus living expenses. With strings, Margaret hissed. With boundaries, Nora corrected. Standard anti-harassment provisions. Don't emotionally abuse family members. Don't attempt extortion. Don't commit defamation. Most families manage this without legal documentation. Dorothy, Margaret's sister, had been reading the fund documents. Margaret, she's offering our grandchildren unlimited education. All you have to do is not torment her. How is that difficult? You don't understand she's been planning this. Waiting to humiliate me. Actually, I pulled out my phone, showing date stamps. I started planning this 3 weeks ago. After you called my mother a welfare queen to her book club, she volunteers there. Margaret, teaching literacy to immigrants. The women you insulted barely speak English, but they understood welfare queen perfectly. Jennifer Martinez, the notary, had been reviewing documents. Ms. Bennett, the Education Trust is ready for execution if you wish to proceed. Though, given the attempted coercion I've witnessed, you'd be within your rights to withdraw the offer entirely. Wait. Cousin Paige finally spoke, her phone forgotten. Aunt Margaret, you tried to make her sign away her rights when she's worth $50 million. That's like reverse gold digging. $52 million, Daniel Ortiz corrected mildly. Plus appreciation. The portfolio has grown 8% annually. Uncle Harold, now sober from shock, laughed bitterly. Margaret, you absolute fool. You had a golden goose in the family and you tried to cook it. I pulled out one final document. There's also a pattern of financial manipulation involving the family fund. Ethan's bonuses, totaling $87,000 this year alone, deposited into an account Margaret controls. The same Margaret who claims I'm after money. That's family money, Margaret protested. No, Ethan said quietly, reading the account statements Nora provided. That's my money, that you convinced me to hand over while telling me my wife was a gold digger, while she was sitting on $52 million and darning my socks because she thought that's what a good wife does. The room had fractured into camps. The younger generation calculated education costs. The older relatives processed the legal implications. Margaret stood isolated at the head of the table, her projection screen still showing the contract nobody would ever sign. Here's what happens now, I announced. Margaret, you have 2 choices. Option 1, apologize genuinely and agree to behavioral boundaries. The education fund gets signed tonight. We move forward as a family with mutual respect. Your grandchildren get their futures secured. Option 2. Her voice was barely a whisper. Nora files harassment charges Monday morning. The defamation suit follows. Your pattern of financial manipulation becomes court record. Every email, every lie, every attempt at control becomes public, including tonight's live-streamed extortion attempt. Thank you for that. Paige. Paige winced. I deleted it as soon as I realized Instagram keeps records for 90 days. Nora informed her. We've already submitted a preservation request. Margaret's legs gave out. She collapsed into her chair, the Mont Blanc pen rolling off the table with a hollow click. Margaret's final attempt at control came as a shriek. Money doesn't make you family. You can't buy your way into the Caldwell name. I never tried to, I replied calmly. I married Ethan when you thought I was poor. I stayed silent when you humiliated me. I contributed to this family while you called me a leech. The money isn't about buying anything, it's about revealing who we really are. She grabbed for the documents again, actually tearing a corner of the scholarship fund papers. Jennifer Martinez immediately intervened. Mrs. Caldwell, destroying legal documents in front of a notary is a criminal offense. These aren't real. This is all fake. She's conning all of you. Daniel Ortiz pulled out his phone. Would you like me to call the bank president? He's waiting for my update. Or we could verify the balances in real time through our secure app. Though I should mention, revealing account details without Ms. Bennett's permission would require a warrant. Margaret spun toward Ethan. You're going to let her do this. Destroy your mother, your family. You destroyed yourself, Ethan said quietly. Ava just handed you the rope. The grandfather clock chimed 12:30 a.m. The room held its breath. "Sign it," Dorothy suddenly commanded her sister. "Sign the apology. Accept the boundaries. Let our grandchildren have their futures." "I won't." "Then I will." Bradley stood up. "Ava, if you're willing, I'll sign a family conduct agreement right now. My kids deserve that education fund more than my aunt deserves her pride." "Same," Sandra added immediately. One by one, family members began standing. Uncle Harold, Aunt Ruth, the Connecticut twins, even Cousin Paige. They formed a line in front of Jennifer Martinez, ready to sign behavioral agreements in exchange for their children's futures. Margaret watched her carefully constructed power structure crumble in real time. "This is betrayal. This is consequences," I corrected. Then I placed the final document on the table, one I hadn't revealed earlier. "There's also this. A transfer of deed for the Riverside Avenue building. I'm putting it in a trust for Ethan and our future children. Whether we stay married or not, he'll never be homeless, never be dependent on anyone's manipulation again." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Ava, I love you," I said simply. "I've always loved you. That's why I hid the money I needed to know you loved me, not my bank account. But your mother's made it clear that staying silent enables abuse. So here's the truth, all of it, publicly declared and legally documented." Nora stepped forward with the scholarship documents, now properly smoothed out. "Ms. Bennett, shall we proceed with the signing?" "Wait." Margaret's voice had dropped to a broken whisper. "If I sign, if I agree to boundaries, the fund really covers all the grandchildren, every single one, even the ones not yet born, in perpetuity." She looked around the room at her family, all waiting to sign agreements that would protect them from her while securing their children's futures. The projection screen behind her still showed her humiliating contract, a monument to her miscalculation. "I'll sign," she whispered. Jennifer Martinez moved efficiently, notarizing each signature with her official seal. The stamp came down hard on Margaret's apology thunk. The scholarship fund thunk. The behavioral agreements thunk. Each sound like a judge's gavel, final and binding. By 1 a.m., it was done. $2 million irrevocably committed to education, 23 witnesses to Margaret's agreement to cease all harassment, and one marriage finally free from a toxic mother-in-law's control. Daniel Ortiz shook my hand before leaving. "Ms. Bennett, Harbor First is honored to serve clients who use their wealth so wisely." Nora packed up the documents. "The funds will be transferred Monday morning. The trust is already established. Congratulations on your freedom." As the room slowly emptied, family members approaching me with mixtures of awe, embarrassment, and gratitude. Ethan finally spoke. $52 million, and you darned my socks." "I like darning socks. It's meditative." He laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. "We have a lot to talk about." "We do, but not tonight." I looked at Margaret, slumped in her chair, staring at the scholarship fund receipt. "Tonight? We've said enough." The grandfather clock struck 2 a.m. as we left the Caldwell mansion. Behind us, Margaret sat alone at her grand table, surrounded by the debris of her failed power play, the unsigned prenup, the empty donation box, the Mont Blanc pen nobody would ever use to sign her contracts again. In my purse, I carried copies of every document. Proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's revealing exactly who they are, in front of everyone they sought to impress, with receipts they can never deny. The education fund would activate Monday. The children would have their futures, and Margaret would have boundaries, enforced by $2 million worth of incentive to behave. As Ethan opened my car door, my 5-year-old Honda that I'd keep driving because I genuinely liked it, he asked, "Why didn't you just tell me from the beginning? Would you have believed your mother was capable of this if you hadn't seen it yourself?" He paused, then shook his head. "She gave me life, but you gave me truth. I know which one I'm more grateful for tonight. The 12 chimes of midnight had ended Margaret's reign, but for us, it was just the beginning of a marriage finally built on complete honesty, protected boundaries, and the kind of wealth that no money could buy mutual respect. The grandfather clock in the Caldwell mansion would keep marking hours, but the power in that house had shifted permanently. All it took was patience, planning, and $52 million worth of truth delivered at exactly the right moment. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of revenge served with financial documents, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Ava's situation? Let me know in the comments.